Alrighty, hi everybody, and welcome to the Mama Worriers, Other Worriers webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to give a minute or two to see if anybody's going to pop on, and I anticipate that people are going to kind of flow in and out, and that's okay. So I'm just going to give it a moment. And I'm just also going to make sure that all of my settings are going. All right. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so we are going to be talking today about worry and anxiety in pregnancy and in new motherhood. And I wanted to first start out with talking a little bit about who I am and why am I the one talking to you. So first of all, my name is Stephanie Straub. I am a therapist, a licensed clinical social worker, if we're going to be official, and the practice owner at CNY Therapy Solutions. I've been running this practice for 7 years, and I've been working in the field of perinatal and maternal mental health for the last 9 years. And so I kind of got into this space because I was needing to make a business decision about knowing that I wanted to open my own private practice, what I wanted that to look like, and who did I most want to work with as my clients, and the people that I was most excited about working with, and that just kind of felt most fulfilling as a therapist were those new moms. And so that's kind of how I got into the space. And then as a human, I'm a mother of 2 girls. I almost said little girls, but they're not so little. And I am an avid trash television fan. I love anything on Bravo, and tonight after this webinar I have a date with my couch, and this summer I turned pretty. So if there's anybody who enjoys The Summer I Turned Pretty, feel free, we can have like a side chat in the comment section about who we think Belly should end up with. So anyway, if you're on and you're comfortable, let me say hi in the comments and let me know who you are and what you hope to get out of our time today. And I guess we'll just kind of get going. Now, I've got to tell you, I've never done, here's my true confessions, I've never done a Facebook Live like this before, and I wanted to screen share. And I don't know how to do that because my practice screen that I practiced on looks different than this screen. So give me 15 seconds to see if I can upload or screen share, and I'm not seeing where I can do it. So guess what? We're gonna wing it, and it's gonna be great, and we're gonna have a great time. Okay. So bear with me. Nope, I don't see it. Okay, we're just gonna go for it. All right. So first of all, what's normal? What's normal when it comes to worry and anxiety and new motherhood? Okay. Now, first of all, I think there's a difference between the words that we need to differentiate between the words normal and common. All right. So there's worry in new motherhood is very, very common. All right. But excessive worry to the point where it's impacting our functioning, well, that's not normal. Okay. And we want to feel as normal as possible when we are in pregnancy and in parenthood. So as a therapist, when I'm working with a new client, the thing that I kind of, the barometer, the measuring stick that I kind of use to determine, is this what I would call like a clinical issue, or an issue that, would require clinical intervention or therapeutic intervention, is how, if at all, is it impacting your functioning? So one of my favorite sayings is, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And it's a problem when we see an impact in functioning in certain areas, okay? Those areas are your physical functioning. How are you sleeping? What's your appetite look like? Are you gaining or losing weight that you didn't intend to? Are you experiencing physiological symptoms of panic, like, rapid heart rate, elevated temperature, kind of more labored breathing or tightness in your chest? All right. So those are the physical impairments in functioning, just a few examples, okay, that we look at to say, okay, this worry may be going in a direction that's impacting functioning, okay? And when I say, how's your sleep, I'm not talking about I have a newborn baby at home and I'm not sleeping because baby's not sleeping. I'm talking about baby is comfortably snoozing away in their bassinet and your mind is like tick, 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 okay? All right. So that's one indicator that your worry is kind of bordering on or moving toward problematic and could benefit from some supportive intervention. Okay, another space that we look at in terms of your functioning and how it's being impacted is relational functioning. Okay, now for a lot of folks, we bring, especially when we're pregnant or we're bringing a new baby home, and then even well beyond that. And when I talk about postpartum, technically we're looking at like the first year, usually from birth till that first birthday. But if you have already had children, I'd like to say we're indefinitely in a postpartum period. My oldest is 15 and I still feel like I'm in postpartum. I still have mom brain and I'm still second guessing myself and I still have irrational worry sometimes, right? So postpartum, technically a definition is that first year, but honestly, anytime after you have that baby and beyond, you're postpartum, okay, in my book. So, but relational issues, disruptions in functioning. So, with your partner is usually where we would see it the first, because that's who you're spending the most time with when you're in that pregnancy or postpartum time frame. But familial conflict is not at all uncommon with the family of origin or the in-laws or the partner's family of origin. Okay, feeling disconnected from others, feeling like people aren't getting it, they're not listening, you don't feel understood. Okay, if you're struggling, if you have other children and you're struggling with your patience level toward those other children, that is another spot where it's like, oh my gosh, like my kids are just being kids, and that's kind of like their typical behavior, and I have no patience for it, and I'm being short with them, and I'm angry, and I'm yelling, or I'm raising my voice. That's an impact on your relational functioning. Okay, mental functioning. How do we know that our mental functioning is impacted? Well, okay, maybe you're struggling to concentrate. Maybe you have racing thoughts. All right, maybe it's hard for you to focus. And you might be experiencing what are called scary / intrusive thoughts. Okay, these scary or intrusive thoughts, I want to kind of do a little bit of a sidebar about that. Okay, so scary and intrusive thoughts in the postpartum period are not at all uncommon. In fact, we see 90% or above of new parents, okay, whether it's the birth parent or the other parent, okay, experiencing scary or intrusive thoughts. What are these? Okay, this is, you're giving a baby, the baby a bath, and you have a thought in your mind, and it might even be an image of something bad happening to that baby while you're giving it a bath, to that baby going underwater. And it might even be in your mind, you might have a thought of intentionally doing it. Okay, that is a scary, intrusive thought. Now, what the majority of new parents will experience when they have that scary thought is, oh my God, what? How could I think that? That's a horrible thought. And they might get freaked out. As a therapist, I say, that's good. We don't like that you had the scary thought. That's no fun. But the fact that it freaked you out tells me as a therapist that you're not feeling a drive or an intent to do it. In fact, the idea of that happening, whether accidentally or on purpose, it freaked you out. And that's a good sign, okay? That means that it doesn't align with who you know yourself to be and who you want yourself to be as a parent, all right? And how I explain, like, then why do we have these? They're awful and they feel crappy. How I explain these to new parents, okay, is that in a way, we're all still kind of cave people. And we exist for the survival of our species. And one of the kind of backwards ways that our brain works to ensure the survival of our species is to put an idea in our mind of something awful happening, or an image in our mind of something awful happening. And then we react in a way to ensure that that bad thing doesn't happen. So maybe, in keeping with the bath example, okay, maybe we ask somebody to help us with the bath, or maybe we take a break from like submersion baths and we just do like sponge baths for a little bit. Like, we might do a lot of different things to ensure that the bad thing doesn't happen. Now, that's kind of an extreme example, okay? But that's what those scary thoughts are there to do. It's like, hey, don't let this awful thing happen. Like, even though I just put this idea in your mind, or this image, or this like thought in your mind of something horrific happening, this is just acting as a reminder for you not to do it and not to act on that. And so that's a little tidbit of education around scary thoughts. Now, if you are having those types of scary thoughts all the time and it's creating a lot of mental and emotional distress, there we go. That's our disruption in functioning, right? But for a lot of people, specifically when it comes to the scary thoughts, is having the education around what it is, and probably more importantly, what it isn't. This is not an urge to go do the thing, okay? That can calm a lot of our nerves and anxiety around it, okay? But that's impairment in mental functioning. Difficulty concentrating, brain fog, unable to focus, racing thoughts, scary thoughts. Again, that ticker going on and on and on and on and on. What if, what if, what if? Worst case scenario, okay? Emotional impairment in functioning. We're feeling keyed up. We're feeling on edge. We're feeling irritable. We're feeling angry and rage. Rage is a word that a lot of people feel, an emotion that a lot of people feel, but a word that not a lot of people want to express. And I just want to put your mind at ease that if you have experienced or are experiencing rage, you are not alone. It's one of those things that people don't like to say out loud, especially when they have little baby or small children at home, for fear of judgment and stigma, okay? But rage is not at all uncommon. Is it normal? No, but it's not at all uncommon, all right? And that is an emotional impairment in functioning. Feeling, and then a lot of times when we have that kind of irritability, feeling keyed up, feeling restless, feeling on edge, irritable, feeling ragey, okay? Those are all disruptions in emotional functioning related to anxiety and excessive worry. And then, because we feel so crappy about that, we can also have depressive thoughts and feelings, kind of as like piggybacking on the anxiety. Okay. And then lastly, other impairments in functioning at work or at home. So activities of daily living. I am so anxious all the time. Like, I can't even like bring myself to take a shower. Like, I'm so worried about that. I don't want to step away from my baby, so maybe I'm not showering, or maybe I won't take a nap, or when I need to, because I'm just sitting here watching my baby to make sure, it's napping, and I'm just watching to make sure its little chest keeps going up and down. I might feel so overwhelmed by everything that there is to do, but am paralyzed to start doing any of it, all right? So we do nothing, okay? I'm frozen, and then this is what we do to ourselves sometimes, right? And what our anxiety does to us is, I feel so anxious, I feel overwhelmed, I can't do anything, I feel paralyzed, I don't do anything, and then I feel like crap for not doing anything, okay? And so then I kind of beat myself up, and so on and so forth. The cycle continues. All right. Do I have everybody? Does everybody understand what I mean? How we know, like, this is beyond baby blues. This is beyond new parent transition. This is not normal. This might be common, but it's not normal. It's when we see that impact on our functioning. Okay? So we have that anxiety. Now what? Now I know it's not normal. What do I do? What do I do? Okay. All right. So one of the things that I've picked up along the way, I can't even take credit for the saying, but I love it, is we need to put out the flames before we rewire the house. Okay? So if you're walking by a house that's on fire and the fire started because of an electrical issue, you're not going to go straight to, the circuit box and rewire it. You're going to start by, maybe calling 911 and getting the fire department there to douse out the flames, okay? And the same thing goes for somebody who's really experiencing some of the significant anxiety. And how I go about doing that, okay, with my clients and what I would advise viewers to do, all right, is to focus first initially on symptom relief. I feel like crap because I'm so anxious and I'm worrying all the time. How do I at least get some initial relief? And for what I have found in my experience is getting our self-care under control. And I mean basic self-care. This is not manis, petties, massages, bubble baths, okay? Although all those things are wonderful and I'm never going to tell you not to do them. What I'm talking about is the basic foundation of your functioning, your physical self-care, okay? And it starts with sleep. I think that is the foundation for everything. And when it's impaired, okay, it significantly disrupts our functioning. So some of those disruptions in functioning that I talked about just moments ago could possibly be addressed by just getting some of these things in order, all right? We're going to start to put out those flames, okay? Did you know that sleep deprivation is used as a torture technique with prisoners of war? All right, so the struggle is real. If you've got a new baby at home and you're only sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, and that's not even straight through, that is like in 45 to a minute to an hour long increments, that is torturous, okay? And so that's going to impact how you function mentally, how you function physically, how you function emotionally, okay? And so we need to look at getting improved sleep, okay? The goal would be to get a 4 to 5 hour block of time. Now, this may mean you have to think outside the box, okay? So this may mean that you go to bed at 7 p.m. 7 p.m., I have not seen a 7 p.m. bedtime since I was probably 7 years old, okay? But if you can't get a good chunk of time that's going to give you about 4 to 5 hours, maybe you go to sleep at 7 and your partner or your support person or family member or whoever can sit with a baby from 7 to 11, and boom, you just got a 4 hour block. Maybe if you're breastfeeding, maybe we give a bottle in there, okay, during that time frame, all right? And then you get up at 11 and do feedings and whatever else throughout the night, or you trade off with your partner, and maybe that sleep is chunked up, okay? But you got that 4 to 5 hour block at the beginning of the night. Okay, so even if maybe in addition to that you only get another hour or 2 hours throughout the night, right? Like, you got a good chunk, and that's going to really improve your functioning. Okay. Another thing that I encourage my clients to do when we're working on sleep hygiene, okay, is having your own sleep routine. So thinking about when you've got a new baby or young children at home, okay, they have a 9-night routine. All right, you don't just chuck them in their crib or in their bed and say, okay, time, go to sleep. Yet as adults, we do this to ourselves all the time. We do this to ourselves all the time. So what I'm encouraging you to do as an adult is to create your own bedtime routine, okay? So a certain amount of time before bed, I say 20 to 30 minutes. First of all, we're going to turn off screens, okay? Nobody likes to hear this. And let me tell you, if somebody told me to turn off, stop using a screen 30 minutes before bed, I would probably revolt too. But I'm not having trouble sleeping, and I'm not having difficulty, all right? So this is where we go back to, it's not a problem until it's a problem. So if you don't have a problem with sleep, falling asleep, staying asleep, if your sleep's not impaired, then use your screen to your heart's content, okay? But if you're having trouble with your sleep, all right, we're going to start with taking screens away about a half an hour before bed. Okay, and that includes television. A lot of people think, well, I'm not going to use my phone, but I'm still going to sit and watch my show on television. All screens. Again, until this is not a problem anymore. Right? And then you're going to do a bedtime routine. Maybe you're going to wash your face, you're going to brush your teeth, you put your jammies on, maybe you read a book, maybe you do some light stretching or deep breathing, a couple, yoga poses, whatever. It doesn't matter. But similar to what you do with your young children or with your baby, which is we're going to have a snack, I'm going to rock you, I'm going to sing you a song, I'm going to read you a bedtime story, maybe a bath is in there, whatever, right? But there's a series of events, and those events start to be cues to your baby's mind and body that it's time to wind down for the night, and you need the same thing too. You can't go all day and then expect to just lights out as soon as your head hits the pillow, okay? Right. That can really, it can take a while to kind of come down. Now, if you're completely and utterly exhausted, all right, you might be able to pass out, but that's not necessarily a demonstration of good sleep hygiene either. All right. Next, we're going to talk about nutrition. So again, this is part of those fundamentals of self-care, nutrition, okay? It's super duper hard when you've got a new baby at home. It's like I eat when I can. Maybe I'm grazing throughout the day, all right? But you got to make sure that you're eating, first of all, okay? And even if you're anxious and it makes you kind of lose your appetite, it's still important to fuel your body, all right? And when you're making those choices, try to choose nutrient-dense foods. Now, if you have no appetite at all and you're not eating, okay, maybe you're even losing a little bit of weight because of it. If it's a difference between not eating and giving yourself a Big Mac, well, then get yourself a Big Mac, okay? But then once you are more in the routine of eating, okay, regularly, then you want to be making some good choices. And especially for nursing moms, but a lot of times, you sit down to give the baby a bottle and you're like, now I'm in this chair and I feel chained to this chair because it's, feeding time for the baby, and I just realized I'm thirsty or I need a snack. Keep a little basket right next to where you feed your baby, and make sure there's a bottle of water in there and, a couple of other like granola bars or grabbable snacks, okay? Speaking of water, I'm going to take a sip. All right. All those people are like, let me know if I can do anything when new baby comes, all right? This is where you're going to cash in on that. You're going to say, oh my gosh, what would be great? We've got a cooler left out on the front porch of our house, and we are really struggling to keep up with meals. So if you could bring some food and drop it off, a lasagna, a mac and cheese, a casserole, something, just throw it in that cooler. Let us know when you're coming, when you're going to drop it off. You could throw it in that cooler. That would be such a great help. 9.9 times out of 10, people say that, they really mean it. They really do want to help out, okay? They may just not know what to do or when to do it, right? So this is something you can give them an instruction on what to do. And with the cooler on the front porch, you're not saying, come for a visit, come to hold my baby, right? You're saying, come feed me and my kids or my spouse or my partner or, my other support persons. All right. Another thing is talking to your doctors about any sort of supplementation that might help. There is research out there that says that omega-3s are really good, like fish oil. Your vitamin D, obviously, if we're in central New York and it's wintertime and you're cooped up inside all day with a baby, you want to make sure you have that extra vitamin D, okay? All right, but obviously check with your medical provider first. There's my disclaimer. All right, exercise. I'm going to call it this movement, okay? Like, the verdict is in. Exercise is good for us, love it, hate it, or something in between, okay? It's important. And the research shows that if you have a moderate amount of exercise for 30 minutes 3 times a week, that is equal to the same, that has shown to have the same emotional or mental impact as a dose of Zoloft, low dose of Zoloft, okay? It also has shown, if let's say you're already on Zoloft or some sort of antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, it has shown to increase the effectiveness, okay? Go move your body. And I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, like, oh, I chase after my kids all day. That's different. That's activity, and that's good. There's like a word for it. It's like it's just like kind of the additional movement that you do throughout your day. But it's really important to have like dedicated 30 minutes straight worth of movement, okay? And it can make a difference. I'm sorry. I hate working out. I hate it. I do it, but I hate it, okay? Okay, and then the last one is medical care, okay? You got to go to your doctors. You got to go to your 6-week, and you got to follow up with your primary, okay? You've got to do your medical care, all right? Postpartum care in this country is not great. And last time that I was looked at the research, it showed that only about 40% of new parents miss that postpartum visit, that 6-week postpartum visit, which is crazy. So first of all, we get hardly anything, and then second of all, only 60% of us are actually taking advantage of it. Okay, so that regular medical care is important, especially if you're struggling. There are other issues that can mimic depression and anxiety, like like thyroid issues, like a vitamin deficiency, low vitamin D, low B12. So you want to make sure you get those levels checked. Okay. All right. So that's the four kind of pillars. All right. Our sleep, our nutrition, our movement, and our medical care. And then we have 2 honorable mentions. 1, social support. Okay. That it takes a village. It takes a village not just to like help the baby. It takes a village to help the parents and the new parents. Okay. All right. So we want to make sure that we're getting connected with some quality supports. All right. We don't want the gossipy friend. Like maybe they're there for entertainment value, but in terms of like, I want somebody that I can like ugly cry in front of, that I can speak my actual truth, and they're not going to judge me. Okay. We need that. And it's not always easy to find it. It's not always easy to find it. Be careful about who you follow on social media as well. There are a lot of mommy influencers out there, and what you see isn't always accurate. It's a highlight reel, and there are some that'll be like, "Oh, I'm a mom influencer, and look at this messy corner in my house." But even that it's curated content, and so it's not necessarily always an accurate representation of what's real. And I know, sitting across from a lot of my clients, that sometimes they are kind of triggered or activated by these mom influencers. So if you like to follow them, that's great, that's fine. But I encourage you to hide them from your feed, so that when you're sitting down and having some relaxation scrolling time and you see this perfect mom influencer cross your screen, and now you feel like this was supposed to be your relaxation time, and now you're feeling cruddy and like you're not good enough because you're sitting there in sweats and they have matching outfits with their partner and their kids, that may be hurting more than it's helping. Okay, so I'm never going to say unfollow if you like that person's content, but you can hide it from your feed so that you can go access that content on your own time when you're in that right mental headspace. Okay, that social support. And the last is time to yourself. All right, time to yourself. It doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours, but a little something that's just for you. So whether it's a hobby like reading or crocheting or crafting, or whether you like to flip through, a tabloid magazine, like your In Touch Weekly or your People, or maybe you need to watch a little bit of that trash television, or find out, is Belly going to choose Jeremiah or Conrad, right? If you can parcel out 10 minutes a day, it does not have to be mountains and mountains of time, but a little space and place that you can just go be. You don't have to do for anybody else, and you do something that fills your cup. A shower or a bath is not part of that, okay? I want to say that again, louder for the people in the back. Bathing is not part of self-care. It is a necessary part of like your personal hygiene, all right? But bathing is not a treat, and that's not me time, okay? That's a bare minimum necessity, all right? So let's make sure that we are not taking a shower and calling that self-care. All right, so what happens if, okay, we're putting out the flames and it's not quite helping, okay? I still feel pretty cruddy. I'm working on those things, I'm moving in the right direction, I'm getting good sleep, I'm exercising, I'm feeling my body, and it's not quite helping. This might be when we look at therapy and or medication. what we find is that it is most effective with a combination of two, all right? And medication by itself can be helpful, and therapy by itself can be helpful, but the prognosis is best when they're combined, all right? How do I find a therapist? Well, locally in Central New York, CNY Therapy Solutions, all of us that work here right now specialize in perinatal and reproductive mental health. All right, so that's a local space that you can go, and we offer both virtual and in-person sessions. Okay, some people like the virtual from home because they don't want to be away from baby yet. Some people like virtual or like coming in person because they need a break and they need to come in and be away from baby for a little bit. Both are okay, and we can accommodate both. And you could also have the option of, here at CNY Therapy Solutions, we allow babes in arms. So babies that are content to be held, or even once they're a little bit older, content to be, on a blankie on the floor, playing with some toys, they are welcome. Once they're mobile, that makes it a little bit harder, okay? But bring those babies in, we love them. Okay. If you're not local, or if you're looking for other supports, additional supports, okay, you can look at postpartum.net or postpartumstress.com. And that is both of those are resources that are available to you to find a therapist that specializes in this area, okay, in the perinatal mental health, okay? And so you can access, again, I'm going to say those again, postpartum.net or postpartum.net or postpartumstress.com. You can also look at the Postpartum Resource Center of New York. They have a website and a directory. Okay. Let's talk about interventions. All right. So there are a couple of ways of thinking that are really unhelpful when it comes to anxiety. And I'm going to highlight one of them, which is jumping to conclusions or fortune telling, okay? We see this often with new parents, and it's where we assume a worst case scenario. So we have a what if, and then our brain fills it in, our anxious brain fills it in with the worst case thing could happen, okay? Whether you engage in this pattern of thinking or really any negative pattern of thinking, okay? What we want you to do is to practice evaluating that thought to see how based in reality is that thought, okay? How factual is that thought? Okay, so if you have a negative thought of something bad happening to your baby, okay? What if, I'm trying to think of something. What if something happens while the baby's sleeping, okay? What if the baby stops breathing? It's a pretty common one, all right? The first thing that I want you to do is ask yourself, okay, what is the worst thing that could happen if your baby stops breathing? Now that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad, okay? And your brain is going to your anxious brain is automatically going to take you to the absolute worst thing that could happen, all right? This is not at all uncommon, all right? We feel connected to these children and bonded to these children. We don't want something bad to happen, okay? How likely is that worst case scenario to happen? How likely is that to happen, okay? Now we add in some space for kind of negotiating with that thought, okay? When you're in the throes of anxiety, the anxious thought is fact, okay? But if we slow down and we say, okay, that's a really awful thing that could happen. How likely is that? And statistically, the likelihood isn't that high, all right? It's still there. I'm not going to try to fool anybody into thinking it's not possible because these bad things do happen, right? But the likelihood of it happening, all right, to your baby is slim. So we kind of look at, on that scale of how likely is it, where does it fall? And then you kind of check in with yourself and say, all right, does that feel a little bit better? It's not likely. All right. The thing about anxiety is it's kind of a jerk. And even if it's like, okay, the chance is only 0.0111% that could happen, all right? Anxiety's going to hyper focus on that 0.0001%, okay? Because that's just what anxiety does. It's really good at it, okay? And so now we have to lean into, and what if that were to happen? Oh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, I really don't like that feeling. But we stop at the bad thing happening and we don't play it forward. How would I cope? What would I do? How would I manage that? And I invite you to answer those questions. Now, I'm not saying this would be a walk in the park. I'm not saying that something bad happening to your baby wouldn't be devastating. But what I am saying is, we often stop at the horrible thing happening and not what happens next, and not how would we cope. And we don't consider the fact that, sadly, this happens to people, and they go on to still find richness and meaning in their lives. They are forever changed. I will not deny that. But they are still capable of being okay. Let's look at the usefulness of that worry. Is there any utility in that? Is there anything useful that I can glean from that worry? Well, if you're worried about something bad happening when your baby's sleeping, sure. What I can do is I can make sure that I'm using safe sleep hygiene skills. You know, we're not putting giant fluffy teddy bears in bed with the baby, okay? We are putting the baby on their back until they start moving and rolling around, all right? We're not using blankets. Maybe we have, we're using a pacifier. Maybe we're having a fan going in the room, okay? There are all these different, maybe I have a video monitor, all right? Only the video monitor if it doesn't become an obsession, all right? But that's a sidebar, okay? But maybe we go through the checklist of, okay, how can I make sure that that's not going to happen? And so that worry, again, remember I talked about the survival of our species? That worry has some utility, all right? That has some utility because now we're going to go through the steps and the procedures to make sure that our baby's safe, okay? And so it's not all for naught. I mean, it feels pretty cruddy, but it might make us run down that checklist and make sure that we do all the things that we need to do. Now, what about what's left over? So let's say we do all the things and we go, okay, checklist, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this to ensure that my baby is sleeping safely and soundly and there's no problems. Well, my anxiety is going to be like, there's still a chance. There's still a chance that bad thing can happen. And it can still start cranking out that worry. What do I do with that? What do I do? Is there anything to do with that? All right. First of all, I want you to take a deep breath. All right. The breath isn't going to get rid of your anxiety. I don't want to be patronizing, but just take a deep breath. Connect with that thought. And say aloud to yourself, I am having the thought that. Okay. There's a difference between what if happens and I am having the thought that could happen. Okay? That gives a little bit of space from that anxious thought. Just to name it as a thought. I am having the thought that something bad could happen. Okay? Next, you're going to name how you're feeling. I am noticing that I'm feeling anxious. I'm noticing I'm feeling worried. I'm noticing I'm feeling tightness in my chest. I'm noticing that I'm feeling myself start to sweat. Okay? And then we breathe in, that deep breath again. By breathing in, I acknowledge the thought and I acknowledge the feeling. And exhaling, nice, big, long, extended exhale. I'm going to release it. Now I love to say, and poof, your anxiety will be gone at this point. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Okay? Now we redirect it. So here we go. Okay? We're recognizing it. okay? We're naming it, we're feeling it, all right? We're gonna release it. Now we wanna redirect it, okay? This is where we go and we do a distracting activity. We do a distracting activity. We go for a walk, we watch a movie, we paint by numbers, we, I don't know, pet our dog, we cook something, we watch a show, we read a book, okay? Now, so many people make the mistake of jumping straight toward the distraction. And your anxiety, like I said, it's a jerk, and it's going to be like, hello, 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 pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, those anxious thoughts, okay? You have to name it. You have to recognize it. You have to name it before you release and redirect. If you jump right to distracting and redirecting, it's going to get louder and louder and louder. So, yeah, I know you're there. I hear you, I see you, I know you're there. I don't have to play with you. I don't have to interact with you. I don't have to feed you more and more and more with additional thoughts, all right, and energy and time and attention. But we can say, yeah, I know you're there. Okay? Great ways to redirect: journaling, grounding exercises. A great grounding exercise is, I'm just going to use this room as an example, okay? I want you, in the space that you're in, okay, name anything that's square. Right? Anything that's square. So I look around and I say, okay, I have a calendar, I have this bulletin board, I suppose this is more rectangular, I have these things on the wall, all right, I have a bookshelf that's square, I have a little fireplace here. I really have a lovely office, you should all come and visit me sometime. All right, I have oh my gosh, do I have boxes of tissues? The good kind with lotion, all right, I got that within arm's reach, okay? I've got a little footstool that's a square, book, I have a little trinket thing that somebody gifted me, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at everything that's square, all right? And I'm just going to intentionally take my brain to another place, all right? Another thing is something creative or artistic that actually uses a different part of our brain, and it's a really good way to redirect that anxious energy, all right? And last, this is a great way to redirect, is some sort of mindfulness. And what I love to encourage folks to do when practicing mindfulness is to find a treat that has a high kind of like sensory experience. Chocolate, citrus, coffee, okay? Those are all great ways to kind of access a sensory experience, all right? So I don't drink coffee, but I have my mug that I use for tea. And what I'm going to do, all right, when I'm having a mindful experience, when I'm trying to redirect those anxious thoughts, I'm going to hold this mug, all right?